God, could you be any more pathetic? It's just dancing, she sneered after ignoring me the whole evening for her old flame at the wedding. So I drove home alone. Now our friends blocked her number, and she has no idea where I went. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The air in the ballroom was thick with the smell of champagne and gardenias. From my perch at the round table, number 7, I watched Sarah and her new husband sway under the twinkling lights, looking at each other like they'd just invented love. I was happy for her. Truly. It's just that watching something that perfect can make you feel your own relationship like a phantom limb. You get this urge to check it still there. My fingers found the stem of my water glass. Across the dance floor, Chloe's laugh cut through the music, a sound so bright and sharp it drew every eye. She was with Mark, an old friend from her college days who'd flown in for the wedding. He had his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd toward the bar. She was looking up at him, her head tilted in that way I used to think was reserved for me. I looked down at my phone. 9:17 p.m. The last text I'd sent her, an hour ago, sat unread, grabbing us seats at table 7. Saved you a piece of the lemon cake. A server swept by, clearing the empty champagne flutes from our table. Seen your better half? He asked amiably. She's making the rounds, I said, forcing a smile. The band shifted to a slower song. The happy couple cleared the floor, and other partners drifted into their place. And there they were, Chloe and Mark, stepping into the center of the empty space as if they'd been waiting for their cue. He pulled her close, one hand on her lower back, the other clasping her hand tight against his chest. Not the loose, friendly hold you use with an old pal. This was something else, something possessive. She melted into him, her cheek resting against his shoulder, a serene smile on her face. A cold knot began to tighten in my stomach. Dude, a voice murmured beside me. It was Ben, Sarah's cousin. He nodded toward the dance floor, his eyebrows raised. Everything cool? Yeah, I said too quickly. Old friends. You know how it is. He gave me a pat on the shoulder that felt more like a condolence and moved away. I watched them for 3 full songs. Every time the music changed, they'd laugh, say a few words, and stay right where they were. He'd whisper something in her ear, and she'd playfully swat his chest, her fingers lingering on the lapel of his suit. I saw Sarah, the bride, glance over at them from her sweetheart table, a tiny frown creasing her forehead before she was swept back into conversation. This wasn't jealousy. Jealousy is hot and irrational. This was something colder, more clinical. It was the slow, dawning realization that I was witnessing a performance, and I was the only one in the audience who knew the script was wrong. Finally, I pushed back my chair. The noise of the reception seemed to fade into a dull roar as I crossed the room. I found her just outside the ladies' room, reapplying her lip gloss in a gilded mirror. Chloe, she jumped, then saw my reflection and rolled her eyes, turning back to her makeup. Alex, hey, you finally decided to socialize. I've been at our table for an hour. I texted you. My phone died. What's up? You look tense. She said it like it was a character flaw. I took a breath, keeping my voice low. Are you okay? You've been out there with Mark for, like, an hour straight. People are starting to talk. She snapped the cap on her lip gloss and finally turned to face me, a sigh of pure exasperation puffing from her lips. God, could you be any more pathetic? It's just dancing. He's an old friend. If you were more confident, you wouldn't be so threatened. The words landed like slaps. They were so cliché, so rehearsed, that for a second I could only stare. This was the woman I'd planned a future with. It's not about confidence, Chloe, I said, my voice eerily calm even to my own ears. It's about respect. For me, and for Sarah's wedding. This isn't the place. Her eyes flashed with contempt. She leaned in close, her perfume, the one I'd bought her for her birthday, smelling suddenly foreign and acidic. Maybe you should try being more fun. More like him, she hissed. Now excuse me, he's waiting. She brushed past me, her shoulder knocking into mine. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching her walk away. She didn't hesitate. She went straight back to Mark, who was leaning against the bar. She put a hand on his arm, rose on her toes, and whispered something in his ear. He looked over her head, his eyes finding mine across the room. A slow, smug smile spread across his face. He gave me a lazy, 2-fingered salute. And Chloe, my Chloe, laughed that bright, sharp laugh again, following his gaze to see the punchline. Me. The cold knot in my stomach dissolved, replaced by a profound and absolute silence. The music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, it all just stopped. In that perfect, silent clarity, I saw it all for what it was. The love wasn't just gone, it had been a placeholder. I had been a placeholder. The switch had flipped. There was no anger left to burn. Only a simple, incontrovertible truth. I was done. The hum of the reception faded into a distant, meaningless buzz. I watched them for another moment. Chloe's hand now resting on Mark's arm, her body angled toward him like a flower seeking the sun. The image didn't hurt anymore. It was just data. A fact. A conclusive piece of evidence in a case I hadn't known I was building. I turned my back on them. My feet carried me across the ballroom, my movements automatic and precise. I didn't look at anyone. I didn't see the curious or pitying glances. My focus had narrowed to a single, clear objective: exit with dignity. I found Sarah near the head table, accepting a hug from her great aunt. She caught my eye over the woman's shoulder, her smile bright but questioning. I waited patiently for the hug to end. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "That was a beautiful ceremony. You look incredible." "Thank you, Alex," she beamed, but her eyes were already scanning the room behind me, looking for my other half. "Where's Chloe?" "Having fun. She's thoroughly occupied," I said, and the flatness in my tone made her focus snap back to me. I offered a small, weary smile. "I'm so sorry to duck out early. I've developed a truly apocalyptic migraine. I think I need to go lie down in a dark room before my head actually explodes." Her expression shifted instantly from bride to concerned friend. She knew me. She knew I wasn't a complainer. She also knew where Chloe had been all night. Her gaze flickered past me again, toward the bar, and her face softened with a deep, understanding pity. "Oh, Alex. Of course. Are you okay to drive?" "I'm fine. Just need quiet." I leaned in and gave her a real hug, a solid one. "Congratulations again. Really, I'm so happy for you." She hugged me back tightly, a little longer than necessary. "Call me tomorrow," she whispered into my ear. It wasn't a suggestion. I pulled back, nodded, and gave her hand a final squeeze. Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom. I didn't look back. Not once. The cool night air of the parking lot hit my face like a blessing. It was clean, silent, and untainted. I found my car, got in, and closed the door. The silence inside was absolute. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, listening to the quiet thrum of the engine. Then I drove home. The streetlights blurred into golden streaks. There was no internal monologue, no raging against the injustice of it. The part of my brain that cared had been surgically removed back in that hallway, with the sting of her words. What was left was a strange, hollow peace. The decision was made. The course was set. There was nothing left to debate. I pulled into my driveway, our driveway, and killed the engine. The house was dark and silent. I walked inside, towing off my dress shoes by the door, hanging my suit jacket on the hook. The familiar surroundings felt like a museum exhibit of a life that had ended about an hour ago. I went into the bedroom. Her side of the closet was open, a spill of dresses and shoes. The perfume bottle sat on her vanity. I looked at it all, and I felt nothing. No nostalgia, no anger. It was just stuff. I changed into a t-shirt and sweatpants, brushed my teeth, and got into bed. The space beside me was empty and cold. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, waiting for the pain to hit, waiting for the tears, the heartache, the devastating sense of loss. But it didn't come. Instead, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion took hold. My body felt heavy, my mind blissfully blank. The last conscious thought I had was a simple, logistical one. I'll need boxes. Then I fell into a deep, dreamless, and perfectly still sleep. The world had ended, and I had never slept better. The sound of a key fumbling in the lock jerked me awake. Sunlight streamed through the blinds. I checked my phone on the nightstand. 2:17 p.m. I'd slept for over 12 hours. The front door swung open and slammed shut. Footsteps, unsteady in high heels, clicked against the hardwood floor. I didn't move. I lay there, listening to the aftermath of her night. The sigh, the drop of a purse onto the console table, the fridge opening, then closing when she found nothing she wanted. Our bedroom door creaked open. Chloe stood there, silhouetted against the hall light. She still wore the emerald green dress from the wedding, now wrinkled. Her makeup was smudged, giving her a raccoon-like weariness. She blinked at me, expecting something. An argument. A question. Tears. "You're still in bed?" she asked, her voice raspy. I tried calling you like 10 times. I sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. I didn't look at her. My gaze fell on the empty cardboard box I'd retrieved from the garage last night and left sitting by the closet. A silent promise to myself. My phone was off, I said. My voice was flat, neutral. She took a step into the room, her arms crossed. So you just left? You couldn't find me to say goodbye? You made me get an Uber home. That was so embarrassing. I finally looked at her. I let her see the absolute void in my eyes. There was no anger there to push against. No hurt for her to manipulate. Just nothing. What are you doing? She asked, her bravado faltering as her eyes darted to the box. Packing, I said. I stood up and walked to her side of the closet. I started with the shoes, placing them neatly in the bottom of the box. Strappy sandals. Boots. The black heels she'd worn on our first anniversary. Packing what? For what? A note of panic crept into her voice. Your things. I moved to the dresses, sliding them off their hangers one by one. Your sister is expecting you. I called her this morning. She'll be here in an hour to help you get the rest. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel her stare burning into my back. You're kicking me out. The words were a disbelieving whisper. Then, like a storm cloud rolling in, her tone darkened. Over nothing? Over you being a jealous baby last night. You're unbelievable. I placed a silk blouse in the box and turned to face her. Her face was flushed with real, indignant anger. She truly didn't get it. The lease is in my name, I stated, my voice still that same, infuriatingly calm monotone. It's not working out. I'll Venmo you your half of the deposit. It was the clinical nature of it that finally broke her. The lack of fire. She wasn't having a fight with her boyfriend. She was being processed. You can't do this, she shrieked, taking a step toward me. After 3 years, this is how you end it? By throwing my clothes in a box. What is wrong with you? I didn't answer. I just turned back to the closet and continued packing. She stood there for a full minute, seething, waiting for a reaction that wouldn't come. Finally, she let out a sound of pure frustration, spun on her heel, and stormed out of the room. I heard the bathroom door slam shut, followed by the sound of the shower. An hour later, right on time, her sister Lisa's car pulled up. Lisa, a sharper, colder version of Chloe, marched into the house without knocking. What's the big emergency, Alex? I had to cancel. Her voice trailed off as she took in the scene. Me, silently placing a stack of Chloe's jeans into a second box, and Chloe, red-eyed and fuming on the couch in her bathrobe. He's having a psychotic break, Chloe announced to her sister, gesturing at me like I was a museum exhibit. He's kicking me out because I danced with a friend at a wedding. Lisa looked from her to me, her eyes narrowing. Is that true? I stopped packing and looked at her. The boxes are here. My decision is final. I'd appreciate it if you could help her expedite this. Lisa, who had never liked me, seemed almost impressed by the sheer, icy finality in my voice. She shrugged. You're lost, dude. Come on, Chloe. Let's go. You're too good for this drama anyway. They packed her remaining things in a flurry of muttered insults and slammed cupboard doors. I stayed in the living room, out of their way. When they were done, Lisa carried the last box out to her car. Chloe stood by the front door, her keys in her hand. She looked at me, a final, desperate attempt at manipulation in her eyes. You're really going to let me walk out that door? After everything? I met her gaze. Yes. The word was so simple, so absolute, it stole the breath from her lungs. The act dropped. For a split second, I saw pure, unadulterated shock. And then fear. She opened her mouth to say something else, but nothing came out. She turned and walked out, pulling the door shut behind her with a quiet, definitive click. The silence that filled the house was no longer hollow. It was peaceful. The text started a few days later. Not from her. From the world, filling me in on the karma I had no interest in seeking. From Sarah, the bride. Hey, just checking in. Heard from a few people about what really went down at the wedding. I'm so sorry, Alex. She made a huge mistake. We're all on your side. From Ben, the cousin. Dude, that Mark guy? Total tool. Apparently had a whole girlfriend back in Chicago. Ghosted Chloe the second his flight landed. Karma's a bitch. Another from Sarah a week later. Just so you know, the girls and I have sort of distanced ourselves. What she did was so disrespectful to you, and to us for doing it at our wedding. She's been trying to play the victim. It's not working. I read them. I appreciated the sentiment. And I deleted them. Their drama was no longer mine. The fallout was her problem. I was just the quiet, empty space where the explosion used to be. The silence in the house was no longer an absence of sound, but a presence. A clean, open space I filled with my own rhythms. I went to work. I came home. I cooked meals for one. I bought a bookshelf and started reading again. The world, which had narrowed to the pinpoint of her betrayal, began to slowly expand. The first attempt came 2 weeks to the day after she left. A text message that buzzed on my screen while I was making dinner. Chloe, I can't believe you turned everyone against me. You ruined my reputation. We need to talk about this. I read it once. The anger was still her primary language. There was no apology, only accusation. I didn't block the number. I simply placed my phone back on the counter and stirred the pasta sauce. The notification glowed on the lock screen for an hour before it faded to black. I never replied. The second attempt was a voicemail, left at 1:17 a.m. a month later. Her voice was slurred, thick with tears, and what smelled like cheap wine through the speaker. Alex, please. Pick up, please. A shaky breath. Mark was a mistake. A huge mistake. He used me. He had a girlfriend the whole time. A sob. Everyone hates me. Sarah won't return my calls. The girls, they've all blocked me. I miss you. You're the only good thing I had. Please, just call me back. I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder. A receipt for a lesson learned. Then I deleted it. The sound of her unraveling was not my concern. The final attempt came on a crisp Saturday morning 6 weeks later. I was leaving the gym, the endorphin buzz a pleasant hum in my veins, a white gym towel draped around my neck. I was unlocking my car when I heard the hurried click of heels on asphalt. Alex, I turned. She was standing there, looking small and frayed in a jacket that was too thin for the weather. Her eyes were puffy, devoid of the sharp, calculated glamour she usually wore like armor. This was raw, desperate need. Please, she said, her breath making little clouds in the air. Just talk to me for 5 minutes. I didn't move. I didn't invite conversation. I simply stood by my car door, waiting. Chloe. It was the flatness of my tone that undid her. The tears started then, real ones this time, tracing clean lines through her light makeup. I made a huge mistake. I was stupid. I see that now. I lost everything. My friends, you. I'm so alone. Her voice broke on the last word. I looked at her, at the tangible wreckage of her choices, and I felt nothing but a distant, academic interest. Like observing a weather pattern from behind very thick glass. I know, I said. She blinked, stunned. What? That's it. I know. Don't you care? We were together for 3 years. The gym door opened behind us, letting out a burst of clanging weights and upbeat music. I glanced over, then back at her. My voice was calm, a mirror reflecting her own twisted logic back at her with perfect, devastating clarity. That night at the wedding, I said, you told me to be more like him. So I did. She stared, confused. I became a guy who doesn't get threatened. I continued, adjusting the towel around my neck. Doesn't get pathetic, and doesn't look back. I let the implication hang in the cold air between us. I became the man you asked for, and the first thing he did was leave you behind. You should have taken your own advice sooner. I saw the understanding dawn in her eyes, followed immediately by a wave of pure, incandescent fury. The victim act vanished, burned away by the truth. Her face contorted into something ugly and familiar. You're a heartless bastard, she spat, her voice cracking. I hate you. I nodded, utterly unmoved. I know. I opened my car door, slid inside, and started the engine. I didn't look at her in the rearview mirror as I pulled away. I just drove, leaving her standing alone in the vast, empty parking lot, finally understanding what true indifference felt like. 3 months later, I met Sarah and her new husband, David, for coffee. The place was bright and airy, full of the gentle clatter of cups and the murmur of easy conversation. You look good, Alex, Sarah said, stirring her latte. Really good. You're tan. Hiking, I said, taking a sip of my black coffee. Got into it. It's quiet. No one bothers you on a mountain. David chuckled. Sounds better than my Saturday, which was assembling a crib. I think I have a screwdriver permanently grafted to my hand. We laughed. It was easy. Normal. There was a brief pause. Sarah's smile softened. I heard something, through the grapevine. I thought you should know, just so you're not blindsided if it ever comes up. I waited. Chloe moved, she said, her tone neutral, factual. Back to her hometown. Lisa told my mom, who told me. Apparently, she just couldn't make it work here after everything. I nodded slowly, taking in the information. It was like hearing a piece of trivia about a foreign country I'd once read about in a book. Mildly interesting, but entirely irrelevant to my life. Okay, I said. Sarah searched my face for a moment, looking for any trace of pain, or schadenfreude, or anything at all. She found only a placid, genuine calm. Okay, she echoed, a small smile touching her lips. Yeah, I said, returning the smile. I hope she finds what she's looking for. The words weren't kind or cruel. They were empty. They were the absolute truth. Her happiness had become a concept so abstract it held no weight in my world. The subject was closed. It had been closed for a long time. Now, I said, leaning forward, you still haven't shown me the honeymoon photos from Greece. I need to live vicariously through someone's sunshine. Sarah's face lit up, and she eagerly pulled out her phone, the past firmly and finally relegated to where it belonged. As she scrolled through pictures of azure water and whitewashed villages, I sipped my coffee. The sun was warm on my back through the window. The coffee was good. The company was better. I was, without a single doubt, perfectly and completely fine. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.